Welcome to Beyond the Game. My name is Gregan, and today I'm chatting with Danny Lopez, known for his incredible creative work within esports and entertainment.
Creative director was a term that labelled me for many years. Director of brand, director of content, marketing director, strategist, it's all there.
I said no for a long time to lots of things unless I was getting paid. And now I've started going back to I'll just do the things I want to do and then hopefully some of them pay me. Yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts around that from your point of view as a creative person.
It's everything that a brand has to be integrated at some point, right? So then that's the money that keeps it going, because not everything can be done for free. And it is kind of sad because that does kill creativity to a certain degree, because the minute also you do get a brand involved, there's a lot of brands that then might veto some stuff. It's funny because I got into it because the players didn't respect me because I had no knowledge of the game. What happened was I was interviewing them and they were nothing, shut down. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's using the wrong terminology. He's not even getting anything right here. And I went home from that trip. I remember on the flight home and I was like, I'm going to go home and play that fucking game. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to know my shit.
Make sure to follow for future episodes and let us know who you want to hear from next. I hope you enjoy this conversation as we get to know Danny beyond the game. Welcome to Beyond the Game. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
This is one of those episodes that I think is more for me than it is for a lot of people, because you work behind the scenes. You're someone that people won't know, but I think a lot of people have seen your effect in the industry through the content you've made. And I'm sure after you start naming a few content pieces that you've done, we'll be like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that. But Danny, I'm so excited to chat to you about what you've done in the esports and gaming space as a director in creativity. I guess, do you want to define it in your own terms rather than that? Because you've done so much more than just that.
Yeah. Hello. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. That's a lovely intro. Creative director was a term that labelled me for many years. Director of brand, director of content, marketing director, strategist. It's all there. I'm sometimes even guardian to the pro players is sometimes there as well. You know, it's been there over the years as well. But yeah, so it's a really hard one to define, but it's storytelling essentially, I think, is the way I would sum it up. It's brand storytelling or individual storytelling and bringing those stories to life for the masses, whether that's in flat graphics, video, in whatever way it is. But yeah, that's how I define it.
Yeah, you've built up quite the expertise over the years. You've been a senior role within esports and gaming for over 6 years.
Yeah.
Not many people can boast that kind of qualification. One of the most experienced, you've worked with some of the biggest names like FNATIC, Riot. I mean, we met at Guild where we were there from the early days building out the brand and everything. For you, what's your sort of biggest moment where you're like, this is what I really want to do throughout that journey?
That's a really good question. I'm stumped. What I really want to do.
Yeah, when was the first job where you're like, this is it, this is what I'm built for, this is what I specialize in?
It's probably FNATIC, to be honest with you, because I went in there and especially their video content didn't look the way it did when I first walked in there. It was sort of like hodgepodge bits here and there, different freelancers working on things, not great sound, not great color, all these small little details missing that really do make a huge impact. And there was just so many stories to tell and it was so rich in that way. And we were, as individuals, this is going back to 2015 now, but we were hammered with reality TV. You know, that was a lot of that. And that had been going on for quite some years, and especially like the peak of people like the Kardashians, and they're giving you all that storytelling. And I just looked at it and I went and spent some time with the League of Legends team in Berlin. And I was like, some great characters here. This is amazing. And I went to do a standard sort of shoot with them, which was for a sponsor at the time, a screen sponsor, ISO monitors. And it was just them talking about, you know, how great the monitors are and sort of very sort of standard stuff. And I was like, actually, I think we could make a weekly reality series around these guys and that pressure and all of that. So I pitched it in. Steel Series at the time were a sponsor, and they were like, we'll fund it. Well, this is great. We'll fund it. We'll get behind it. And I set up a little team and we literally started making weekly episodes, and it just blew up instantly blew up. The casters were talking about it on stream. Oh, in this week's Life of Legends, they were talking about this. Reddit #1, lol, Reddit #1, every week in, week out. Boom, there it was. Everyone talking about it, snippets coming out. Episode numbers, huge, hundreds of thousands of views out of nowhere and nothing, and quite low budget. And that's when I was like, okay, I know I can do a lot in this industry. Because that was just an off the cuff. I didn't really put much thought into it. I didn't reinvent the wheel. And now that became industry standard.
Yeah.
Every League of Legends team has a video crew following them round, and teams in America were hailing it. Like, it was coming from all over the world, and everyone knew the players, they knew the personalities, they knew everybody. So, and that was really simple and low-hanging fruit at the time. And people at Riot, that's it. We got to know everybody there. We got priority. The cameras coming through. Oh, the League of Legends team, the film team are here today. Got to interview the cast. Yeah, I'll definitely do a piece for it. I want to be in the episode, and it was a brilliant moment. So that was very early on. I think I knew that it was quite easy to do things.
Well, because you sort of described there, the original content idea was a very standard piece. And I think that's something esports struggles with at times, where on broadcasts, the video pieces between games and everything is very standard. It's very like, this is a 3-minute piece to camera, very simple questions. And I think that can be repeated in a lot of places. Do you think that's a lack of time for the people to come up with the stuff, because it takes time to be creative, or do you think it's a lack of skill set within the industry?
I think it's the latter.
The skill set.
I come from a degree of film and TV production. It's not just by chance or by accident. I'm not a self-taught person in that way. It was something that I'm passionate about. I grew up massively by film, cinema, storytelling, all of that. So I have, mastered my craft, let's say. I didn't just walk in and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'd done a few years before that in ad agencies and other production companies. So I was just reapplying what I already knew to the industry. So I think there was a real lack of that. Recently, I've seen a big uptake in getting better at this, but you talk about like those filler moments, there's still massive broadcasts that are struggling for that shoulder content. We're going to cut to this little skit right now. We're going to cut to that little skit. I mean, you talk about Guild, back at Guild, we made our own shoulder content during our Rocket League streams that people went wild for, and we shot that a day in a green screen studio, really low budget, and it was some of the biggest stuff that blew up at the time. People were like, what is this? This is crazy, but it's great, and I love it, and I want more of it, So,
and it started getting the rumblings of, have you seen the Guild stream? Have you seen this? And then other streams start to mimic it. So that's the thing where you're saying it's the people thinking of it first time. There's not enough of that. It's a whole industry of, I saw these people doing this. I mean, I'll put my hand straight up. I wanted to do a get to know podcast where I want to get to know people in the industry, tell their side of the story, the stuff that you don't hear about in the forefront. We've all got our brands now that we have to be safe, so we can't talk about personal struggles on our social media or on broadcast. So I wanted a place for that. But I saw podcasts and went, I want that aspect to them. I want that aspect to them. And I'll be honest, it took a while for me to start thinking of my own angle. It took 6 months or so to build it out. So I don't have that skill set like you do. I'm not as naturally creatively thinking like that. Whereas we just had a chat just before the podcast here, where you rattled off about 10 ideas for me, right? Because your brain thinks like that. You've got so much experience. What do you think we need to start doing in our space to improve the quality, not just in creative, but in every aspect?
Another good question. What do we need to start doing in our industry?
I mean, I look back on when they got you at Guild, and there was quite an intense recruitment process to get the right person, and we got you in the end, which I think sort of shows it was a great recruitment process.
Yeah, and I apparently beat off something like 250 plus applicants to get that. And I know I was probably going head to head with somebody from the traditional sports world and somebody from this traditional sort of entertainment world, but no esports experience, and that was what was all was difficult for me. And as my experience has grown, and I have, spoken to more people or interviewed with more people, is sometimes maybe not getting a role or not getting that gig and seeing them go down that route, and then it failing, and not saying I am the right answer, but it has taken me many years to craft and understand this community and to gain that knowledge and to understand what works within it and what doesn't work. And I still get it wrong slightly occasionally. But but that's what it takes, is that experience. You can't just walk in from, this works in football.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong community. Like, it's not going to work. Whatever you try and apply, it will potentially work if you tweak it and make those changes to adapt towards that community and understand them. But yeah, I think it's just that experience aspect and respecting that.
So do you think we have a lack of experience then? Because you can't just suddenly gain the 6 years of experience you've had in the senior role and more beyond that. I mean, we had Ian Chambers on here. I know you're a big fan of Ian. We had him on that Guild stream we just mentioned. And when I met him, I knew he was incredible at what he did. And in a similar way to you, he's someone who had studied to do it. He had been wanting to do this for a long time. He had experience in radio and presenting and everything with an esports interest. And I guess for me as a coach, I've been coaching sports since I was like 15. As I went through university, studied the human body, understand how the human body worked. And then when Rocket League came out, I then had a coaching background with an esports interest. And so in that sense, we've both come through the ranks of developing a skill set, and then esports was there and we applied it to esports. Yeah. Do you think that's the angle we should look at, or do you think it is possible for people to get it through that self-taught process?
There's always the opportunity for a self-taught person, self-made people. There always will be, and they'll carve out that. When I look at some of the sort of self-taught people that I've met along the way and along the years, I look at their storytelling like somebody that's given their first opportunity to write a script and then direct. And I see some people in the industry, I'm not going to mention any names, and I see it, but they fall short for me in some ways. Like, the piece will do really well because they're with a big organization, for example, and it will do big numbers. And the community will, and it's because it's good production quality as well. And the community will sit there and they'll eat it up and they'll go, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever seen. The community always say it's the best thing they've ever seen until they see the next thing the next day or the next thing. Like, it's quite fickle in that way. And I'll look at it and I'll go, it's almost perfect. But you left in too many shots of this and you could have tightened up that part. The payoff wasn't quite as well as what it could have been. And it's because I don't think they've really studied the craft and the art of script writing, storytelling, narratives, because it all follows a formula, and it has since the beginning of Dawn, which is an arc. You have to follow an arc in whether it's a 10-second, 30-second, 30-minute, 3 hours, trilogy, whatever it is. They all follow arcs, and that's why we all love Marvel series, for example. They follow an arc. It goes on a journey, and everything does the same thing. It's like the beat of music. It follows that. So if you haven't got that already in the core and you're not implementing that into the pieces that you're creating, then it will fall short. But then there's probably only people like me that don't know. It's I guess it doesn't matter to that degree, but there's always room for self-taught people, and I think they're brilliant. Like, I'm hugely admirable of that. There's a lot of my degree that wasn't really worth it, and there's a lot of people that will sit around and say the same about their degrees. But then there are times when you do think, actually, yeah, maybe it was.
So you did your degree, was it over 20 years ago?
No.
Not quite that long.
No,
like 15 years ago?
It was about, now you're asking me.
Because did you go straight from your degree into the creative space?
No, I actually had a career in finance.
Okay.
Before.
What? So when people have a career in something like finance, when they're a creative person, I always wondered, did they do the same kind of thing as what we do in the esports space, where, like, I was studying at uni and doing esports in the evenings? Were you partaking in creativity around your financial work?
Absolutely, yeah.
What did that look like for you back then?
So, I mean, I was miserable because I always knew, when I first left school, I went on a creative course and I loved it, and it was everything that I wanted, and I was making these mini films with the camera equipment that we had at the time, and I thought I was brilliant, and I was out directing pieces in Leicester where I'm originally from and all this type of stuff, and it was brilliant. I loved it, but unfortunately, like, I don't come from like a wealthy family, wealthy background. I couldn't afford the bus fare to get to college in town, and the part-time work that I had, it didn't coincide with the hours of the college, so I actually had to quit and find a job. So I ended up, I was pretty good at math. I always have been, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something with that. And I ended up in like this finance apprenticeship and things like that. So worked my way through that, and I found myself being quite good at doing what I was doing, and the money would go up the better you became. And I thought, well, actually, this isn't too bad. And like wearing suits and things like that, and it felt kind of like right. And then sort of like chasing money in that sense. But it was always me putting off what I really wanted to do and what I was good at. And so I would, when I finally eventually moved to London, I found myself doing more courses to try and get away from that. So I did like courses at the British Film Institute in the evenings, and at one point I thought I wanted to be an actor and be in front of the camera, so I was doing acting classes as well. And I knew very quickly that wasn't for me when they had us walking around a room pretending to be like Henry VIII and giggling and laughing and doing all these weird things that they make actors do and these breathing exercises. And I was like, no, I'm not down for this. So so I carried on doing more stuff behind the camera, script writing courses and short film making courses, and then putting any spare money that I had into trying to make short films. And they were terrible. They were all terrible. They always are at the beginning. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't admit, is like first period of work is all bad. Like it always is, because you're just making loads of mistakes and you're spending so much money on doing it as well, self-funded. You're working with a really low caliber of actors as well. Lighting's bad, sound's bad, everything's just awful. So, that's something that you do,
So that's something that I want to hone in on there, because I think that's really important, is you went through that period of being bad and getting better. And I think the esports industry, where you described it as a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, they're coming in with massive budgets, lots of money being spent towards their salaries and so on. The same thing with pro players, right? Pro players go from zero salary to, 6-figure salaries overnight. And I'm not quite sure the effect that has on the people, because it can make people lazy, can make them think, oh, this has just been given to me, and they don't work through that journey. The classic thing you hear about is how much better people are in industries that are less funded, right? Like the CSGO scene has done so well over the years because people have had to fight their way to keep alive. And the same thing happens in the fighting game scene, right? People are so much more passionate because they don't have that monetary gain. So they hone their craft without the money being the reason they're doing it. I guess it's the question of why are we doing something before was why? Oh, because I really want to see these players have a great time and succeed. I want to see a cool piece of content. I want our team to go out there and have the best time ever at a tournament. I want to see them do well. Yeah. Now the why is, how do I make money?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately.
And I think that's the big aspect that made me rethink the soullessness. And I look at the games which don't have that monetary mindset, like your fighting games, like CSGO and League of Legends at the start. They were like that, and they're slowly leaning towards the money side a bit more. And League of Legends is starting to see that effect of the numbers going down. The league is becoming a little bit more about the money and how can we, the franchise spots, how expensive they are. So then it's meaning orgs are having to drop out because they can't afford it and so on. Yeah. So that's sort of the concern I have right now. And it's made me rethink a lot of why I do things, because I said no for a long time to lots of things unless I was getting paid. And now I've started going back to I'll just do the things I want to do, and then hopefully some of them pay me. And obviously that's not going to pay the rent, but that's why I'm doing this, because it's something I wanted to do. So yeah, it's something that's made me really rethink. So I have to thank Damascus for coming on and making me reframe it. But yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts around that from your point of view as a creative person.
Yeah, it is a shame, because a lot of the times now, through the lens of making a lot of creative, is, can this be monetized? Can I sell this to a brand? Luckily I'm working with some guys at the moment that are very confident in that the content does result in audience, and audience can eventually be sold. But there is a time when that well runs dry, and then they go, okay, we need to start getting brands names into this, integrated into this. It's everything that a brand has to be integrated at some point, right? So then that the money that keeps it going, because not everything can be done for free. And it is kind of sad, because that does kill creativity to a certain degree, because the minute also you do get a brand involved, there's a lot of brands that then might veto some stuff, and swearing within the content, for example. And if you're dealing with somebody that's part of their personal brand, a creator, and they swear a lot, and that's their audience, and now suddenly you've got to get rid of all of that, suddenly you lose that authenticity. Probably a really bad example to try and like, swearing's great and it should be in content, but I guess that's it from that example. And then brand fits that are right for those people, right for the content. It's not always going to be the right thing, but there is a lot of opportunity to make great branded content as well, and that can be done right. You know, I've seen some examples recently, a game where I do look at it and I'm like, again, I would have approached it X, and I feel like the brand would have got what they wanted out of it, rather than it's been done by a team that maybe hasn't got that brand experience or working with brands and getting it right for the community and getting it right for the game itself as well. And therefore that brand may never now work in the space again because they didn't get the ROI that they wanted. So it's a real tough place. And yeah, I agree with you. I think some of it has been lost along the way. And then therefore people are a lot more cautious about the content that's being created in some ways because of that. And therefore not as much experimenting is happening as what was once before, because you can't take as many risks if it then does become about money, especially with creativity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why we wanted to speak to you, because I could always appreciate you loved what you did. You loved amazing creative work. I mean, the first day we met was before you'd even started working for Guild. You came along to our boot camp to meet me and the players. Yeah. We had a chat. We went out for dinner. We kept in contact, and then that meant the first time you worked with the players, you had a rapport, a relationship with them.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I always appreciated about you as a creative, is you cared about the relationships you had with the people you were working with and the talent on camera. And I think a lot of credit goes to you with those relationships as to why people did such good things on camera for you. Like just looking at the Valorant squad at Guild, I don't think they would have done that if it wasn't for you to be able to build up that rapport. You made yourself silly in that, so they felt more comfortable by wearing that silly green screen thing, you know. What does the relationship between you and everyone you're working with do for your productions?
Brings out the best. It's the best, the best end result. Because let's face it, the people that I'm working with in this industry have never been trained. They probably might have touched on a little bit of drama in school. They're there to play, majority of them are there to play games. And that's all they want to do, is sit there and play a game. They're also most likely introverted. I mean, I've met a lot of guys that also cover potentially being on the spectrum as well. So that's even more an element, and that's often hidden as well. So you take into account all of those factors. You haven't got somebody there that's actually going to perform when you stick a camera on, especially a full crew, everybody on them, eyes on them. They can look around, they can see that money's being spent as well to make these things. That's a lot of pressure. So my job in that instance is to make them feel that there is no stress, there is no worry. We got all the time in the world, but we don't, because someone's in my ear telling me that I do not have time for that extra shot, but I'm making them feel like they can do 20 takes and that's fine, but we'll get it. I know they've got it in them. Self-belief is the other part of my job as well, is making them feel as comfortable as possible, self-belief that they can do it and that the end result will be worth it.
I mean, that was one of the lines I remember you saying to some of our players, was something along the lines of, you're going to look so cool in this. And just convincing them that the end product will make them look amazing. And that's why they're there, is you're there for them. You want to make them look the best.
Absolutely.
And with those big productions, you know, I've seen, the Subway shoot at Guild. I don't know if that's one of your biggest productions, but
it was big.
Seeing the quality of that, the amount of moving parts, the planning of the whole day, a lot goes into that. I guess, where do you learn that? Is it just over time you build it up?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you work with more, you build your network up as well. It's not just me, there is so many people that make that happen, you know, down to the runners, the cinematographers, the lighting guys, the location scouts, the costume, makeup, that everybody does their job, but everybody has probably trained again in that skill set and has experience within that. And they know their role on the day, and they've probably, some of them have worked on big movie sets, and that's a whole different world, you know, so they know. And to them, if they come and work on one of our projects compared to a movie set, they're like, I love this, because it's a lot less stressful and better for them in that way. So yeah, it's learned over a period of time, and that's always the aim. And like when I was studying, when I was learning, you know, we shadowed and we got experience on bigger sets. So you see all the moving parts, you understand it, you learn how that works. So, and your goal is to one day get to those bigger sets and really, you know, get to see it come to life. And yeah.
Have you ever been intimidated by the size of one of your projects?
Does it sound bad if I say no?
No, I mean, I guess that's where the confidence comes from, the studying, the learning, the experience.
I get nervous sometimes. This is an honest thing. I get nervous sometimes walking in on the morning that I've written a terrible idea and that nobody's going to like this. And this is the worst idea anybody's ever come up with. Why will anybody watch this? This is going to flop. It's a waste of money. I'm going to lose my freaking job. How the hell has somebody even given me the budget and the freedom to do this?
And does that come in before the shoot day? Or is it only ever really on the shoot day?
I don't tend to sleep the night before. So yeah, it's imposter syndrome effectively is what it is, you know, and I think a lot of people suffer with that, I know, and maybe don't talk about it, but it is, because you're kind of like, what the hell's going on? How did I get to this stage? How did this get to this stage? You know, how did it get to this point?
Yeah.
And then I just kind of remind myself that like, I'll take a look at it again. And I tend to write a lot of comedy within pieces, because that's a big thing that I'm into. So then I have a giggle at something. I'll be like, actually, if I think it's funny, I think of it. And then somebody else will be like, oh, that bit's really funny. I can't wait to do that bit. And I'm like, okay. And I get a vibe of the room. And everyone seems to trust me in that moment. So I'm like, these people are relying on me as well. They want it to be good as well. They want this to be the best project. So
that builds you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. In performance psychology, there's multiple different scales that you can put people on where their preference lies. And one of them is avoiding threat versus seeking reward. And that whole idea of, do you avoid the mouse chasing after you? Do you chase after the cheese? Avoid the cat chasing after the mouse or chase the cheese? That kind of mindset. Do you feel like you're the person who's avoiding the threat behind you or chasing down that reward?
Mix, I guess. But I think most of the time it is chasing down the reward. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a mixture as well. I tend to avoid threat a bit more, and I've had to train myself to chase down the reward a bit more. Because typically what it does is it means that as you experience that success, your reaction is different. There's like a relief reaction that we pulled it off versus a let's celebrate reaction because you're excited for that reward. And it also comes into that how quickly you turn around ready to chase that next reward. So yeah, it definitely changes the way someone would feel in the lead up to a shoot day. You might start thinking about all the things that could go wrong rather than thinking about all the things you're going to do and the things that you're looking forward to.
I mean, by now anyway, something does always go wrong. 100%. And that was the best thing that happened to me, is getting to that mindset of going, something will go wrong, and preparing myself for it emotionally. It's either the costume is the wrong size, this didn't arrive, that person hasn't turned up on time, oh, we haven't got the right light for that, this shot actually isn't going to work now we've set it up within this space. So many things go wrong. And it's just sometimes just going, okay, and through experience, fast on the feet, what's the solution, what are we doing to this, you know, and to fix this, and we fix it. And then nobody will ever know on the outside world. That's it. They only see the finished piece and they're like, oh, it's great, it's amazing, love it.
Yeah, I guess live is a bit scarier for that reason, because if there's something goes wrong live, people will see it.
Yeah, which is why I avoid live. But it's coming. Yeah, I'll be working on a lot more live stuff coming, and I've done a bit of live stuff over the time. But yeah, it's just
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving hearing all these different stories and how your mind thinks, because I think there's a lot of crossover between performance and competition as there is in production. There's a lot of the same challenges you face, and we always connected when we were at Guild on a similar level of the way we thought and the deep thinking, and that's why I really want to get you on here, is to draw out those deep thoughts. So I guess
I'm an overthinker.
Yeah, Tell me about it.
Overthinking is, and I'm discovering more about what an overthinker is, and that's helping me as a person. Platforms like TikTok and being able to see these videos that I'm being targeted with about overthinking has really helped me a lot in the past couple of years, because I never was able to put a label on it. I was just always like, in my mind and in my brain, oh, this is what everyone else must do. They must completely overthink that conversation that they had with someone that didn't feel quite right, and they'll spend the next day or two thinking about that. No, apparently that's not normal. That person hasn't even given it a second thought. So, it's...
the way it plays on your mind as well, overthinking, it's the whole flight or fight reaction, where if you don't process it, and through therapy, that's an example a lot of people who overthink find helpful. If you don't process that thought, put a label to it, move on from it, whatever it is, you're constantly being threatened by it. Constantly comes back, revisits you. Especially say it's overthinking. A classic one would be relationships. You go on a date with someone, you overthink it until you next see them. That's going to be playing on your mind that whole 2 weeks or whatever it is. And with those kind of scenarios, there's ways to deal with it, and that comes with experience. And those TikToks might have helped maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Content,
yeah. Content helps content creators. But we'll take a little bit of a break from some of the deeper thinking. We'll come back to that in a little bit. We'll do what we ask every one of our guests, and that's their top 5 games. So have a bit more fun here and look back on your gaming life growing up and some of the games that have been key for you. Now, people can take this top 5 games however they want. Some people do it based off of what's helped them in their career, the most important games. And then other people just do it based off the ones they had the most fun with, or the ones that they reflect on and think that was one of my favorite games ever played. So what are your top 5 games?
Favorite game I've ever played is the God of War series.
Okay, we don't let series fly on.
Oh, okay. So then the first one, because obviously that was the first time playing it.
What was it about God of War that you enjoyed?
Oh, it's just the story and just the weapons and the way you just just the adventure. It was just phenomenal. The cinematics, the graphics of it. Yeah. Kratos himself as a character, it was just all brilliant. Yeah.
As a storyteller, you appreciate good storytelling, then get immersed in it.
Yeah, and that one really sucked me in. Nobody saw me for a while on that one. Sad when it was over.
Yeah, I've got a few games that have been like that, where you just get so sucked into it. I rarely get sucked into a story, but if I'm really into the lore, then that's where something like a God of War series, where each one you've got that transfer from the previous one to bring in.
Yeah.
So what's number 2 then?
Oof, I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't know. I think I'll go number 2 because to keep it more back towards the esports, and it was a game that I'd never played before I got into my career of esports, but it's League of Legends. I'm a big LoL fan. Not the greatest player, but I am, and yeah, I really got into it. And it's funny because I got into it because the players didn't respect me because I had no knowledge of the game. And what happened was I was interviewing them and they were nothing, shut down. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's using the wrong terminology. He's not even getting anything right here. And I went home from that trip. I remember on the flight home and I was like, I'm going to go home and play that fucking game. I'm going to go back there and I'm going to know my shit. Just even, I went deep dive onto Reddit. I played that game. I came back and I was like, oh, that's the character I've started. That, and suddenly, what do? They open up their world because I took an interest in their world. So, but the problem was it then became something that I wanted to keep playing, and I have done for years. But I've transitioned over to Wild Rift now because it's a bit easier. So, but it's still the same game. Yeah. So League of Legends.
I mean, League of Legends game that I've never had that deep dive into because it is quite a jump from that first step to knowing enough that you can understand it. And I feel like I appreciate the structure of it, but then the esport and the game as a whole. But to actually go in and learn it, I think I would have to be fully on board, and like you did, and have that deep dive.
Yeah.
So I'm going to avoid it until I have to.
Everyone should at one stage there. Yeah.
So God of War and League of Legends.
God of War and League of Legends are up there. I have to say, one of the Grand Theft Autos has got to be in there for me because that game is just wild, isn't it? It's everything that we shouldn't have ever been given in a game. So like GTA 4 is probably the favorite out of all of them, right? That's madness, that game. In fact that it exists is just wild enough in itself. Like the things you can do in there.
When you think about it like that, you're like, actually, yeah, this should never have come true. I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of worse things happen in other games, but then GTA is all of the bad things in a very realistic setting, right? That's the thing. It feels so real, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, I've avoided doing the nasty stuff in GTA. I very much only played it for the game modes where you're just like driving around.
That's what I do. Yeah,
but I've done a lot of vicariously playing it through other people, watching other people play through the story mode.
But then suddenly you get bored and you're just like, actually, I might just mow down some people.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Sure, just rob this bike off this person or whatever. You do some wild stuff in there. But yeah, you're just like,
fully immersed. So GTA in there. Got 2 more. Don't worry, no one's going to hold you accountable.
No, of course not.
But you'll hold yourself accountable. We know that.
Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't be right if I didn't put something from like, growing up and something in there that really had an impact on me that I put a lot of hours into growing up. And it's either Sonic or Mario. It's one of the, I put probably equal into both. But
Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games.
The combo. There you go. Woo. But yeah, it's probably one of those two classics. And I'll probably lean more towards the Nintendo series with Mario because it's just, I think they did ultimately a better job.
Any particular one of the Mario games that you'd choose?
I liked 3 the best because you got the tail and it had that weird noise. Ding, 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 ding. You're flying along and you just hammering that button to fly. So yeah, I think 3 was one that I spent a lot of hours on.
Yeah, I've played those games more in hindsight. They were about when I was younger, but I've gone back and played them multiple times. And they still are fun to play. Like the mechanics of those games were so simple, and the graphics were so simple, and the concept was so simple. I think that's why they're so replayable, isn't it? All the retro games, because they weren't trying to overcomplicate something. They're very easy to pick up. Yeah. And then a final game here.
See, I'd probably put an FPS in there if I was any good at them, but I am shocking. I played Valorant a few weeks ago with some friends and just got absolutely I was just target practice. Not even moving target practice as well. I was just, I'm dead again. And so therefore I just don't enjoy a game. If I'm not, I don't enjoy that. So, and one that I fell out of love with, but I spent so many years on is FIFA. So I have to say FIFA, just because the hours I put into that game.
Which is your favourite one? You chose a lot of series. I feel like I'm having to be mean here. But yeah, which FIFA? I'm also going to ask you about why you fell out of love as well, because I'll be interested to hear why.
I don't know, I played a lot. When did we play a lot? I'm trying to think of the year that we played a lot in. And it was because I was working at an agency at the time and we started playing every lunchtime. And then our lunch breaks turned into 2 hours and there was about 12 of us on the sofas and we were just hammering it. And then they brought in a rule of like no FIFA lunchtime because we got carried away. We would eat before at our desks as well to maximise our FIFA playing time. So, it's one of these cool agencies like, we've got a PlayStation and like loads of controllers and stuff like that. But
and they regretted it.
I can't remember the year. It was probably like, I don't know. That was almost 10 years ago now, yeah. So somewhere around there. It was like probably 11, 12, 13, one of those, yeah.
Well, I want to know why. I could probably guess why you've fallen out of love with FIFA, but why have you fallen out of love with it?
I think it was repetition. I think it really was like, even when I got a Switch, and the first time I got a Switch, I was like, it's got FIFA on the Switch, I'm getting FIFA so I can play it anywhere, everywhere, all the time now. And then it just became very much like I run down the wing, across the ball in, I score a goal type feeling. It didn't matter what team I was playing. The aspect of it just became a bit too, I think as a solo player, I lost the love for it. But if I was sitting around playing, there's like 4 of us, then there's loads of bands flying around, then it's good in that environment. But as a solo playing game, I think I just lost that. I do a few season modes and things like that. I never got into any of the pack openings and things like that, thank goodness. Cause
that's where you
would be broke.
Yeah, you lose a lot of money on that. Well, I mean, that's a big aspect of gaming that I think is getting lost over time. And I think people are starting to remember how good it was as that sitting next to the person you're playing against. And again, I go back to the fighting game community because that's such a big factor for them. And, you know, there's going to be events running now post-COVID with Street Fighter 6 coming out. I'm so excited to see people playing in person, seeing that, chatting back and forth. You know, do you remember the FIFA like apologies people would put out because I'd lost by 5 goals to a friend, you know, like all that kind of in-person fun. That's why I love Mario Kart so much. You know, have friends over, play Mario Kart, and, you know, when you win a race, you get up and
in your
jump
face.
yeah, exactly. And like growing up with a brother, I used to play Nightfire split screen against each other and just spend hours going back and forth against each other. I won this one, you won that one. And choose a new game. Oh yeah, new games come out. Can we do split screen? Yeah, that's gonna be a great game for us. I think there's a lot of that has been lost over the years.
There has, yeah, as it's moved, to the way it's moved.
So anyway, we're kind of getting old manny right here.
I mean, all my picks probably are as well. It's probably giving away a bit.
Yeah,
I got League of Legends in there. That makes me cool.
I mean, you haven't got as far back. Some people have brought out some retro consoles. We've had some Sega Mega Drives and stuff.
I mean, I had all of those, absolutely. But yeah, I was a console collector.
I guess the Mario is that's truly retro, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
it
a retro
still lives on now.
knows.
I went to see the movie the other week. It was great.
I really want to go see it. I'm gonna watch it when it comes out on streaming platforms. Yeah. The modern world equivalent. What was I going to say? Yeah, we always ask greatest gaming achievement, but we'll run through that top 5 real quick. So God of War 1, League of Legends, a FIFA around 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
And then we had...
What else we have?
Mario 3.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what the last one was.
I can't even remember it now.
You got it? Can't remember. Producer Harry can't remember. Well, it was there.
It was there. There was
GTA.
GTA, yeah.
There we go.
That was higher up, I think. But yeah.
Yes.
There you go. So,
yeah. So we also ask everyone their greatest ever gaming achievement. So people who compete, they'll often say something they've done success-wise like that. But for a lot of people, we just want to find out what that moment was with like 100% the game, or I did this super fast time trial, or I managed to achieve this. Is there any particular achievement you can think of, a rank you've reached that you look back and go, oh, that was me at my peak in gaming?
You know what? There's probably 2 for that. It's one where I was just telling you about the agency I worked at, and when we used to hammer FIFA, and we decided one night we would have a FIFA tournament, and all of us bought in, and we all put like a tenner in each as well. So there was a bit of pot money there on the table to take, and I'm pretty sure I either came second or we won it, but I can't remember. Like me and my duo went like all the way and like hammered it, and we've been training that week online, like to just get ready for it. So it was ridiculous. Now when I look back at that, but so much fun as well. But yeah, League of Legends, I think I got to like plat once, and but I think like 2 days later it had gone because it was the reset of the new patch or whatever it was, or that season had ended, so I was straight back down to the one below, and it was like, great, well, got to get back on the grind again to get back up there, but I didn't, because it was like,
Well, you picked up League of Legends after you were a busy working man, so to have the time to dedicate to League of Legends, be pretty fun.
3 games in the evening, and then it's done. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Well, I mean, it was fun there how quickly that FIFA memory was retrieved, because I do feel like gaming moments, they stick with us, don't they? When you think back, like that was the moment where I felt that special feeling. So I guess we'll go back to you as a working man, the wonderful creative director you are, and talk about what kind of pieces of content do you look back on and think, that's one of my proudest pieces of content?
Yeah. I mean, Life of Legends series with FNATIC, I'll always look back upon that fondest memories. And the trailer for the World's film that we made a World's film full-length documentary, which was screened in the Gfinity Arena cinema. And some people came along and watched it, the community came along and watched it as well. And we had a pre-screening before it went live on YouTube. The trailer we made for that, still to this day, and it's 7+ years old as well, I still get like goosebumps from it. We got it so right, the music, the shots, it was just so beautiful, and I really always look back on that piece as a favourite. And that's weird, like a trailer. The work I did with NYXL on the Overwatch League will always be some of my favourite work as well. Some of my favourite players I've ever worked with. We were at the house almost every day, so really got to know them. We ate with them. We, pretty much lived with them in some ways. We lived overnight elsewhere, but we were there every day, in and out with them. And they'd come over from Korea. It's their first time in America, Los Angeles, I think 2 of them spoke English more or less. The others like super broken. Some of them none whatsoever, always translated through the others. Just the best team, and they went on to win that split, But what we won there was the hearts and souls of everybody, and we won on content. We killed it. We absolutely killed it and made some of the coolest content ever. And that was thanks to the owners just having complete faith and just going, okay, yeah, we've seen your work before. You got a budget, go for it. And yeah, went for it. And I worked with Anthony Gibbs, who now lives in Australia, and it was just me and him on the project. And sometimes that's the thing, like I can have all these big shoots, these big people, but me and him, he videoed edited it, I produced, directed it. That was it. That was our team.
Yeah, when you follow, because you're a storyteller, that was one of the things where I asked you to define yourself. Storytelling came to mind.
Yeah.
And I think doing these one-off content pieces with big names or for a show, you don't really get a chance to fully tell that story. So I can see that those following a team documentary style pieces, where you build that rapport with the players, you get to know the players in a way that you're like, I want to share this with the world. I can see you take great pride in that.
Yeah, and some of them are absolutely hilarious, and the funniest young lads ever. And, some of them you keep in close contact with afterwards as well. And you get to know their family, their parents, like all kinds of things. So, and then telling their stories was like quite shocking as well, But why I love that one so much is because when the roster was picked up, New York fans, or just New Yorkers or fans of Overwatch, were just coming in and being like, how can I get behind a team that's 7 Koreans? What says New York about this team? Like, what is there about that? And I was just like, this is an awesome challenge. I was like, accepted. Telling me you don't want them, you don't like them? Okay. One video out. I love this team. This is the greatest team ever. Next video is, this is the best ever. Say Wyobi, marry me, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh, I connect with him on such a human level. Oh, I had the similar thing with my parents, blah, 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 etc. So that was it. It's just simple. And it's simple to me in that way, but I know it's not to others. But yeah, so that was really good. Dr. Disrespect to Stralis. That was a really, really fun one to work on. So
what's working with Dr. Disrespect like?
It was brilliant. Yeah, it was everything that I expect. I did not sleep the night before that one. Oh, it didn't matter. Like, I was just like, ooh, I was nervous, and I'm not a person, I've worked with big names, I've worked with big celebrities. I don't get starstruck in any way. I've always said the only person that I feel like I'd ever get starstruck about is Al Pacino or Leonardo DiCaprio. Maybe that's like just 2 actors that I really, really love and admire. But yeah, in the game world, I've never really done that. And it was funny because I think when I started out, I was with some of the biggest players in the world, like the CSGO guys. I was with at FNATIC, you walk around with them, the League of Legends guys were doing well. And people would be like screaming their names, wanting autographs with them. And I'd just be like, he's a bloody idiot, like, when I'm with him behind this closed door, he's an idiot, he is. Like, he can't even pick his nose or whatever, like just that type of thing. So I've never been starstruck in that way. And it's funny because we've done some calls with him before. I forget.
I don't know Dr. Disrespect's real name.
I've forgotten his real name. I can't remember.
So you had a call with Dr. Disrespect, but not dressed as Dr. Disrespect?
Yeah, so him as like who he is, character. Talked through the idea, the concept, talked through like a bit of it. He had some really good ideas. Obviously, he knows his brand and what's best for his brand well, but he really loved it. He loved the concept, loved the idea, and he was like, it's fucking ace. Like, and I was like, awesome. And I've been following him a little bit, so I'd already got a bit of an idea of what to create there. The Proudest boys were just going to do it anyway because it was like, we're getting to work with Dr. Disrespect. This will be cool, It was all for the gaming headset as well. So yeah, but what was funny is he turned up as himself. It's like Grant or something like that. His name is. I think it begins with a G. I can't remember. What? Is it really? No, he's got like a real normal English name of some kind.
Well, apparently
Guy. Yeah, Guy. Well, unless he's called himself Guy, I don't know.
Yeah,
but like, yeah.
I think his thing was Guy.
So I met Guy anyway, and he turns up in the car outside. He comes out, obviously not dressed in the gear. For that specific shoot, had him made a karate sensei gi with his logo on the back. So that was it, because the whole idea was like they were coming to learn smack talk from the best, because they're just too nice. So, and then he came in as he was, we talked through the script, stood there with him, and he was like, yeah, I want to make this change. We're going to approach it this way, blah, blah, etc. He was like, okay, yeah. I said to him, yeah, ready for you now. So go and get changed. And what was great is in the upstairs, the mezzanine part of where we were waiting, there's the Astralis guys are sitting there. They've arrived. They're all in their gear. I'm talking through some scenes because there was some smack talk, some really serious stuff in there. And one of them went to me, I really don't want to say this about him. Like, I love him too much. This is a bit much. Like, I'd wrote something in there. I was like, okay, well, we can change that. Don't worry about that. And Dr. Disrespect's in the bathroom, and it was one of those like sliding door bathroom doors, not like one that opens in or out. And then it actually had 2 sliding doors on it that connected together and locked. And then he just like opened the doors and just went, gentlemen. And it was fully character. And we were all just like, oh my God, he's a right. At that moment, I think starstruck the Astralis guys a little bit, and it did to me a little bit. I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah, he's arrived. And that moment on, he stopped to disrespect for the rest of the day, more or less. Like, there was a couple of moments where I spoke to him off camera, and, himself, we talked about the script, but still in the get up, but pretty much was Dr. Disrespect for the rest of the day.
That's amazing. Yeah, because you do wonder what it's like off camera with someone like Dr. Disrespect. And I guess once he's all dressed up,
he's in the zone. Yeah, he's in the zone. And then he started doing things that weren't even in the script and weren't even in there. And the moment we shot that first shot, and he just went, I can't remember the opening line of the video. It's like, gentlemen. It's gentlemen something, I can't remember. I've been waiting, or are you ready, or something like that. Yeah, I've been waiting, or something like that. And it was just moment rolled over on that. That was it. I was like, we got something great.
I'm gonna have to watch that back after this, because I do remember watching it when we first met, and you explained you'd done that, and it was so cool because it was so different to anything done before. And as we mentioned, that's something you really aim to achieve when you're doing shows. You want to be unique, come up with your own ideas. You're always thinking of these ideas.
Yeah.
And I thought that brings us on to what you're doing now, which is Storymode. Explain how that started.
So I'd always been interested in setting up some form of shop, something that I led and represented, to be able to offer out, the various offerings and could work with a wider range of people. Because when I have worked with orgs or, developers, TOs, whatever it is, there has always potentially been that person that tips in my inbox and is like, hey, do you thought about coming to work with us? And everybody sort of wants to keep you under that silo. So I've seen there's a demand there over the years for a wider spread, or hey, if you could offer services outside of you working for X company, that would be great. We'd love to speak to you. We'd love to talk to you. And I've always been in contract or in some form of way. So there's been that. And I've seen just a lack of offerings in that sense in the space of people. So I've identified that. It's something that I've been thinking about for years. I've, approached it, and the timings have never always been right. I started working with Tundra. They have a great, investment board behind, and I'd expressed that, one day I would like to set something up in some form of way. And they were like, okay, well, let's work together first of all. We can talk about it later on down the line. And the timing just came right towards the end of last year. We started talking about it like mid last year after doing a lot of the work for them. And they were like, the dialogue just started, and we were like, okay, maybe the time's right to launch something this year. And yeah, we launched earlier this year, Storymode, Creative Studio. And we offer a wide range of services, like branding, strategy, production, you name it. If it falls into that creative content banner, we've got something within us that does it. Motion graphics is one of our really strong points as well that we've started to explore more work in. We've recently put out some great pieces for the combination between PSG and Tundra and Rocket League. So started working on a lot of that. So yeah, it's launched, it's out there, and we're just starting to sort of spread our really early days right now. We're only a few months in, but we've also started to work a lot with footballers as well, and in their sort of like gaming interests in their gaming space, and musicians as well. So it's that word, I'm going to use it, but that youth culture sort of agency. It's a widely spread word, but yeah, it's that I would say it's entertainment and content. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of got into a freelance model for content where your previous employer was your primary client when you left. So Tundra, you're working there, you leave, carry on providing for Tundra through Storymode.
Well, I am actually still the director of brand and content for Tundra. There. Yeah, so I still hold a position within Tundra.
Oh, so they let you just have that freelance ability with Storymode then?
Yeah, so because they are invested in the company.
Oh, that's
perfect. Yeah. So the board of investors behind Tundra are investors in that as well.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, those kinds of productions that you can do for anyone, like you said, you could do anything from football to esports to a one-off shoot to a long documentary style thing. Yeah. If you had someone right now to pitch to you a content piece and you saw it and it was the dream content piece, what would that look like for you? The ultimate content piece you could make?
Well, I've got many of them, but then I'll be giving away my ideas, won't I? So is that what you're trying to get out of me?
I was going to write them all down. Yeah, because that's the thing, right? Is you have someone come to you and they give you a brief of some sort, and then you package it into, this is what we can do, this is how I'd do it.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to make another series of following a team or an org or something around, multiple series piece. That'd be something that I'd love to pick up and jump on something like that. It's been a while for me, and they've always been successful. They've always done well. They always will be if the right audience is there and the right desire and appetite's there. Let's say it hasn't been done before in that area or that place. I mean, look at Drive to Survive is that. The football documentaries on Amazon, they are that. These are the exact same things, and now they're introducing it in tennis and so on, and it's growing out. I'm sure.
Serve to Survive or something.
There will be.
Yeah. Well, 'cause we always joke we should have a Drive to Survive style thing in Rocket League, and we've not really had that much. I think right now the French community would probably be the best place to go for that with French. Yeah, French teams being so dominant
as well, and how well they are behind it as an audience and community. Yeah, it'd really cater for them. But Rocket League's a hard one because of roster mania.
Yes.
So you can't invest too much into players if they're already from one team to the next, or not even on a team by the next split. So that makes it really difficult, whereas the other games do have a bit more of longevity around the storytelling.
Yeah, and if it's a 5-person team, there's more personalities to work with. And if one person leaves, that's part of the story, whereas 1/3 of a Rocket League team leaving, it's quite a significant chunk, isn't it?
Yeah, go and follow them at the new org and who's going to pick up the bill. But it's quite difficult in some games, but there are ways around it, of course. If you're hot on getting the content out and your turnaround's quick, then you can tell that story.
Yeah, I've been loving FNATIC's Valorant content they've been doing recently and following that team. It does help when you got a personality like Boaster. But
absolutely, it's a dream. Yeah.
This is where your angle was. I don't care whether there's no personality by players. There is a personality. You just got to find it, right?
If somebody has no personality, that is a personality.
Yeah. And that's what FNATIC are doing. Leo on their team has been branded as the no personality guy, and now everyone loves him. And he's the most loved player on the team this season just through that.
Yeah.
And that's thanks to someone like Boaster bringing it out. But if there wasn't Boaster, you'd have to come from the camera person who's following or the director or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there is always a story to be told on everybody. Everybody has something to say. Yeah. Just about pulling it out in the right way. But in terms of other projects as well, I think like it'd be great to obviously I guess the end goal is to make something for a Netflix or an Amazon in that way.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That'd be great. It's something within our industry as well. Because I know that they've tapped upon, they've touched upon, they've gently pressed, but I just don't feel like the right project just fell upon their desk.
Yeah, I guess the tough thing you've got is which team do you follow? And if it's not a successful team, it's a hard one to follow. But we're seeing within football, for example, it doesn't have to be the winning team.
It doesn't. The most popular, sometimes probably the best way to go because you've already got the community and you've got the audience.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do. And I guess the big thing about this podcast for me was to learn from you and understand the way your mind thinks. And we've had a lot of that. And I did want to touch on some of the challenges that have been there for you throughout the journey. Anyone listening to this will be aware that you're a hard worker just by the way you've been talking about it. And having worked with you, I know how hard you work, how much, like we mentioned, you came and worked building a relationship with the team for free before you even had to start working at Guild. That's the kind of mindset of a hard worker. What's been the challenges associated for you with working that hard on your craft?
I guess sometimes is recognition. Like, I've positioned this well, and I think it's been a good way of thinking about it the past few years. When we're in school, we're always monitored and we're told when we're doing a good job and when we're doing a bad job, and we're rewarded consistently for doing the right thing. Suddenly we leave school and we're adults and we go into the working world, and that praise disappears. And what actually changes and shifts a lot in a lot of workplaces is we're often told what we're not doing right. And that becomes the focus as opposed to what we are doing right. So I think it's that even when you're a hard worker and a hard grafter, I mean, it's nice to hear it from you. That's lovely. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. But it's not always recognised. And sometimes it's not recognised until afterwards as well, which is harder. So even in the moment when you are burning the candle at both ends and just going full on at it, it's just, it's not there. And I think companies, people, humans can all do a better job of telling people they're doing a good job. And people want to hear it. They do want to hear it. They want to hear that they're doing a good job because they put a lot into it. You know, the average working week is like 37.5 contracted, but we all know everyone's putting way more in than that. So that's a lot of your life that you're putting in towards a job. And a lot of people care about their jobs, care about their work, and care about what they do. I try to tell people they do a great job because I know how important it is to me to hear it. But I guess you get to a point where people think that you're okay with not hearing it. But that's why I live for this. That's why I do live for this community and this, because that comments and the feedback, that tells me that I'm doing a good job. So sometimes that's enough for me.
I guess the challenge you've got within a creative space is you get told you've made a good thing rather than you're doing a good job, you're working hard, whatever it is. The product is more important to them than the work and
process.
The process you put in. That's a typical thing I've always had to focus on as a coach, is make sure you remind them that they've done well for turning up and working hard today and practicing, putting in those extra hours. So whenever I've been coaching, I've always been trying to reinforce you put in 5 hours of work. That's great. You know, keep up that. That's what's going to lead us to get those results in the end. And if you don't win, if you're not rewarding that journey, then when something goes wrong, like a content piece flops or a team loses in a tournament, they're going to think it was all for nothing. And then that's when you burn out, lose that motivation. So I guess that's sort of what you're thinking of there, is there's been moments where you haven't experienced that reward for doing a good job, even when it fails, because failure doesn't mean you've done a bad job. It just means the content piece has failed, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you're only, I said this to you off camera before we started, like in creative as well, you're only as good as your last win. I can talk about those projects, then that's very nice to reminisce about those projects, but they're all easily forgotten. All easily forgotten.
Yeah.
And you're only as good as your last win. And there's so many variables as well that can determine if you have a win as well. I can make the greatest piece of video content, but if it's not put out in the right way, the right time of day, to the right audience, the pickup doesn't happen in the right way.
It's even stuff like
can fall
other people
down.
could all release theirs at the exact same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
something else overshadows it, or something breaks out in the world. Elon Musk writes this big tweet that takes over that day, or whatever it is. Like
so much out of
so
one's
much
control.
out of control that can really lose. Yeah.
You said you seek recognition. You want that to be there, but it's more about the constant recognition from the people you're working with or the people you're working for that I think is what you're thinking about there. I guess you mentioned a little bit about being miserable at one point during your career when you're in finance.
Oh yeah.
So you obviously had some experience with lows and highs in your mental health.
Yeah.
What's your mental health been like through your working life?
It's a tough one because it's hard to be fully honest, I think, in that respect, because of the world we live in. Judged if you are, judged if you're not, being transparent. It's it's tough. It's up and down like anybody's. I think mine is. I've found a lot of consistency in it over the past few years, though, and solidness. Therapy. You talked about therapy earlier. I'm in therapy. I love it. Everybody should be doing it. Not everybody. It's not right for everybody, but like if you feel the need to, there's different ways, different forms of it, and it works for me. I've found that being brilliant. Gym and fitness is something that's hugely important to me as well. If I'm not doing that, then I struggle. I have bad days like everybody else. You still get bad days, of course you do. But yeah, it's hard because if you do really care about something you do and you love and it's causing you stress, then it does put your mental health in a bad place.
Yeah.
And it's hard because sometimes I think you just want to go, okay, then I wish I'd just picked a normal career, a normal job. But I didn't have to do that. There's days when I look back at like, and I'll say to myself, oh God, like, especially when like, I'll give you an example. I've made a piece of content and I've got 4 or 5 opinions on it that are all over the place and are different. And then I've suddenly got to make changes on that piece of content to please certain people. But actually the piece that I want to put out and I stand by and want to put my name to, is the piece that I showed them in the first place. But because you're still always working for somebody, they get the last say.
Yeah.
And then that throws you in the toilet in a way because you're like, well, what am I? Am I just this working creative robot for other people, etc.?
And then when you're at the other end where you're working for yourself, you've then got the challenges of
delivering and chasing, and there's new pressures in everything, isn't there? But yeah, I am grateful for the career that I've been able to have in this industry. But yeah, I guess your question is more around mental health. I think I've answered it in some ways.
Has there been any particular tough moments in your journey where the requirements for you, because you said you worked beyond the 37.5 hour, maybe you've had long, like 70-hour weeks for long periods of time. Has there been any periods where it's become too much?
Yeah, when I worked in America, it pushed me completely over, and I came back to the UK and I took a break. And then I also took a break from esports because at that point I was just fully burned out, and didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what my next move was, didn't know where I was going in life. I just took a little bit of time to figure it out, and then I thought, actually I'm going to give like the traditional sort of entertainment worlds, music, sports, fashion sort of world a try. Spoke to some people in jobs there, and I worked for an agency for a while, and then I was putting out some work and some people saw some stuff on LinkedIn and a few people started knocking on the door, and then I started playing a bit of League again, and then that was it. I was like, oh, I do love this industry. I do really love it in my heart, and I came back to it, and I'm glad I did, because things like Guild would never have happened if I didn't, and where I'm at right now, and the people that I've met along the way. So I do care about it a lot. I care about this industry a lot more than I think people think I do, and I want to see it strive and succeed. And it's tough though.
Well, I appreciate you being so open and talking about all these different things. And as I mentioned, I was excited to have you on just to hear you talk about the thing you're so knowledgeable in. And I think hopefully people listening will have a newfound respect for creativity in the space. Maybe start thinking, actually, something I want to do. What do I need to do? If someone right now was wanting to be a creative within esports, where would you guide them for those first steps?
Creative is a very broad term, so it's hard to say because there's so many disciplines under that and opportunities and options for them. Designers, there's one route. Then you've got the motion graphics, and then you've got the more production side. So some of it is knowing that end goal, how deep do you want to go? How much do you want to do? What also sparks your interest? What gets you excited? Because if it gets you excited and I end up speaking to you, you're going to get me excited, and then I want to work together with you, and we're going to work on this thing together. So that's it. It's about letting your passion come through and come across. And I think that's one thing that I think people really need to do, and finding out your different paths. There's loads of different paths into the esports industry and loads of different opportunities. And it's not just esports, gaming, entertainment, content creators, you know, they're the future. Well, they are already the future right now. You know, you see this, and that's the biggest build right now, I would say. Platforms are popping up left, right, and center. There's opportunities everywhere. But education is the main one, like, and experience, trying things. Like, yeah, you don't have to go to university to become an editor, but practice, and get a great reel together, because that's what's gonna, somebody like me, if I'm looking for an editor, first thing I ask for is the reel. I don't even look at the CV. That's the first thing I look at, is the reel, the work. What is the work? A designer portfolio. You know, it's what it's all about, being a creative. And then I'll look at the CV next. Oh, okay, they're based here. Okay, can I work with them if they're based in the next country? Well, their work's so good, I want to find a way to do it, you know. So, and then having a conversation with them off the back of that. So, yeah, it's getting those fundamentals in place, because creatives aren't always the best at admin and CVs. So I can look beyond that, you know.
There's also, when you put a reel together or a portfolio together, that's them showing their style, what they're proud of, and get a much better idea of that. I'm actually putting my own casting reel together now, because I realised I've never used a reel, because in Rocket League, you know, you're either a Rocket League commentator or you're not. So if someone wants a Rocket League commentator, they'll know to come to me. But now I'm doing other stuff, like, actually makes sense to do that. And you saying that has made me think, I better do that today, get that out as soon as possible.
Then I'll give you one more tip for it.
Go on.
Make a story out of it, because loads of casters can put a casting reel together, but you've said so many things on that desk, you can actually manipulate it and construct it into a story of highs and lows, and actually make me feel something from a 30-second reel. You can make me, show me the excited moments, the knowledgeable moments, the sad moment, the on the edge of your seat moment. You can put all of that together, because those moments do exist.
It takes a bit more time.
Great piece of music.
Bit of editing, yeah.
Great piece of music, and that's it. And then
you can even start doing things like B-rolling in footage that's not in that clip per se, but you can. Blimey, right? I've my eyes have been opened. I've got something to look forward to this week to do. But thank you so much, Danny, for coming on.
No, I really appreciate it, Mike.
It's been great to catch up, because it's been a while since I chatted to you. And as I mentioned before, there should be people listening to this who will think differently about the industry, think differently about the kind of work that you do, and maybe even someone will listen to this and think, "Oh, I've got to get Danny to come do something for me." Because
never know. Yeah, please do.
Never know what might happen off the back of this.
I love it. Yeah.
We end with the same question with everyone, and that is, what does gaming mean to you?
Oh. There's different times in my life that it's meant different things, but starting as a young child, it gave me an escape from reality.
Escape. Yeah.
So it gave me an escape from reality.
And how's it changed?
Well, it's given me a career.
So from escape to
career and some stress.
Some stress.
But gaming gives you stress anyway. Like when you're against that final boss or whatever it is, you're stressed, you know, different level of stress. But yeah, so escape, reality. Yeah. It's everything now. I guess it means everything, because it is. I've built a really, you know, great career off the back of it. I'm very proud of.
Well, thank you again, Danny.
Cheers, mate.